Hello and welcome to Season 5 of Own Your Divine Light Show. I am your host, Yarra Atlantica Miller, also known as Janet Miller. The theme of this show is the divine human rising, recovering our sacred truth. This show is an exploration of the secret truths that have been concealed from us. We are letting go of this old system that no longer works and has held us back from becoming the divine humans we are meant to be. Today, we are having the amazing visionary, I call her the visionary, yes, Victoria Reynolds, who will be sharing her divine truth with us so that together we can achieve the divine human rising. Welcome, Victoria. So happy that you're here today with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today.
And, let me tell you a little more about Victoria. Victoria Reynolds is an oracle of freedom and spiritual luminary. Through her inspiring books, and I know she has one with her, she has her book with her, so if she wants, when you're ready to hold it up, you let us know. Public presentations, broadcasts, and forthcoming films, she helps guide others through transcending fear. Boy, is that needed right now. She was born into a fundamentalist, polygamous cult in the mountains of Montana, where she experienced all the trauma and drama necessary to become who she was always meant to be. It's a very powerful statement. After leaving home as a teenager, she became a successful entrepreneur in traditional business, starting, operating, and selling several companies. And then a midlife holy shift put her on her soul's path. The entire purpose of assisting humanity in rising above fear to create a new reality based only on love. Oh, it's amazing what you're doing, Victoria. So thank you again for being here. And I am so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. Yeah, the holy shift was the 2008 recession, as it was the awakening experience for many of us. Right? So one of the things I've discovered over the years is that awakening experiences tend to be rather painful. And so in that particular case, I lost my business. My husband lost his business. Both my kids were diagnosed with learning disorders. And I was battling suicide again.
Oh, dear.
So when I left home, I was facing suicide. I left as a teenager and I realized that I either needed to commit suicide or I needed to find a way out of my environment. And obviously my higher self stepped in just in time and talked me into not jumping off that cliff.
And I'm so glad you listened.
Yeah. And so 2008 was my, I didn't call it a holy shift at the time. It was, more of a, oh, shit.
No kidding. Absolutely.
And it was the thing that I needed that brought me to that moment of clarity of, if I'm going to change my life, if I'm going to save my life, and then how do I do that? And that was the same thing I experienced, in my early teens, which was that also was an awakening experience. So one of the things I share with people is that awakening is never just one thing. It happens even on a planetary, I have another book that's already up here. Even on a planetary scale, awakenings happen in waves. So looking back through my life, I can say, oh, there was an awakening experience. There was another awakening experience. There was another awakening experience. So the big one for me that completely changed my concept of reality occurred as a result of the 2008 recession. And so it's really important to understand that just because I woke up early, a lot of people had their awakening as a result of the 2020 collective holy shift that happened on the planet. That some of us on a soul level woke up early specifically so that we could help the Great Awakening when it started to occur. Now we're shifting into what I call the mass awakening. That is that's the tsunami of awakening that is going to start happening here shortly.
So happy it's happening.
Yeah. And so the next couple of years are going to be really rough. But I refer to it sometimes as the backside of the storm. The front side of the storm was rocky. It was kind of quiet for a couple of years. And now the backside of the storm is really, really difficult. And it is going to shake the rest of humanity awake. And so we wake up in stages so that we can then guide the next group of awakening forward.
Yep.
So I think it's really important for people to understand this, that there's nothing in that is religious self-righteousness or spiritual arrogance, because I see people run into that all the time. Oh, I'm more awake than everyone else. Get off the high horse of arrogance and self-righteousness.
Yes.
The reason we woke up early was specifically so that we could assist the next group as they wake up and move through that process with greater ease and aid that transition process. So saying, I woke up early and that makes me better than everybody else, which some people do, is like comparing a high school student to a kindergarten student. Just because you're in high school and you learned before the young ones doesn't make you any better.
It was part of your journey. It was part of your contract.
You just happen to be older.
Yep. And you happen, yep.
And the older students actually do best in their own experience when they reach down and they become volunteers in the classroom teaching younger students. There's no arrogance about that. That these cute, sweet, innocent little ones are just now waking up. Let's then be there for them. None of this I told you so, which I know there are going to be people who go into the I told you so, and do not go into that arrogance. You woke up early so that you could help people, not so that you could,
Yep. There was a few times I had that going in my head, especially when this whole 2020 crisis opened up the pandemic. And I'm like, I can't wait till everything breaks out and tells the truth of what's really going on. I'm going to say, I told you not to do that, but then I can't do that anymore. It doesn't matter. I've gotten past that phase, it's like going through a death crisis. You have to go through the grieving and all that. And then you realize you can't push this in people's faces. It's not going to make it any better. It's probably going to make it worse, and it's going to alienate people. So no, we don't want to do that to people. We want to bring them in with love and compassion and understanding that what they went through was what they had to go through, and that we're here to support them through it. It's true. It's beautiful what you said. Absolutely. Yeah. So, what you went through, your, the growing up, when you separated them from yourself, I know that was a huge thing for you to do, because you got out of that lifestyle. And so and I love how you always, one of the things that you say in your bio is that you got through all that trauma and drama you needed to get you where you are. And that is perfect, because I said, that's the way you say it, because we've all had to go through that. To get into what we are now, we had to go through some kind of trauma. I think it's almost like part of the graduation, because until you get through that and heal your own, you can't help anybody else. Or you're at least at a level where you said that they come. I remember when I first started healing school and I started doing healing work, people would come to me, and I had just gotten through knowing, okay, I'm God. I am a spark of God. And I'd start telling them, and they'd be like in shock. So I had to pull that in a little, because they couldn't handle that too much. But I was there for them, because whatever I'd just gone through was there for them, for their next step. So it's so beautiful. And that's where we are now. And it's a whole different way. It's another whole level of helping them through this. So when you went through your part, how did you feel? How long did it take you to get through that trauma and drama? Was it like was it a slow process? It had to be a slow process for you.
Well, in the beginning it was. So what's really interesting is that, I left home when I was 17. I was still very much in my suffering. I was still suicidal for about another 5 years.
Wow.
And I got introduced to a Center for Spiritual Living when I was 21 years old. So my first big awakening experience actually happened, it was in 1987. what I didn't know at the time, and I know now, is that was during the harmonic convergence of 1987.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And I got introduced to, it was then, it used to be called the Church of Religious Science, and now they've rebranded as the Centers for Spiritual Living, with a focus more on spirituality than on church. And I think that's a really important distinction to make. And there at the center, I discovered self-help books. I'd never seen or heard of them, but these spiritual centers always have beautiful libraries and bookstores. And so that's where I discovered self-help books. And I think the very first book I read there were two, Codependent No More.
Oh yeah, that Melody
and
Beattie.
The Road Less Traveled.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure Codependent No More was the first one that I read, and I was stunned. That explained so much of what I thought was wrong with me. I thought I was mentally insane, and that if anybody found out what was going on inside my head, they'd lock me up.
I think most of us do. Until that book was incredible for me too. So I love that you read that book. Yeah.
So those are, and then I remember being on the road and traveling with a friend of mine, and I was reading The Road Less Traveled, and that is still a term I use for myself, that I travel the road less traveled by, and to really be okay with traveling a road and taking a path very few have the courage to take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yep.
And so that set me on a path of self-improvement, self-help books. I voraciously read every self-help book I could get my hands on. And I called it self-therapy. Remember, this was the 1980s, that therapy wasn't even a thing. They were, if you went to a shrink, it's because you're a movie star. And that was about the only people that could afford therapy. Mm-hmm. So I therapied. It took me about 5 years of reading self-help books, what I called self-therapy, to finally get to the point where I no longer hated myself. Mm-hmm. Now, I still hated my past and the way that my parents had raised me, but I no longer had that constant self-loathing. And that allowed me to like myself enough to allow this beautiful person who became my husband to come into my life.
Oh, nice.
And I now call him my husband. We got divorced.
My husband.
Yeah, I separated from him in 2020. I outgrew him spiritually.
It happens.
At the time, he was exactly the perfect partner for me. And I reckon the night I met him, I knew who he was. And I knew I would marry him, and that he was.
And he helped you through the major part of your healing. I mean, he was a great support. So
yes, very much so. He was the grounding and the supporting that I really needed. Mm-hmm. And so I was in that, then I moved from self-help, and then I moved into mommy mode, and then I started reading every parenting book there is under the sun, because I wanted to be a good mom. And then in 2008, that's when I had I also refer to it as my midlife awakening, my midlife rebirth. And I really started to understand why Yeshua said, you must be born again. It isn't about being born again in religion as a Christian. It's about being rebirthed in the spirit of love, being rebirthed in this divine understanding. And so 2008 was my midlife rebirth. And it literally felt like that. I was like, whoa, I'm being rebirthed as someone entirely different than who I had been the previous 40 years.
Wow. That was a powerful.
That was my spiritual awakening.
Yes.
And so that process then, what took me 5 years before, took me about 5 months this time around. And that's what my book, Transcending Fear, was based on, that process that I was given to heal my life. And that's where I discovered that all that pain and trauma and suffering from my childhood, when I was a little girl, I was told that God chose that life. But I thought, what a mean God to put me in this.
Well, why wouldn't you think that? Sure.
Yeah. And then I realized, oh, God didn't put me there. I did.
That's the hard
one. On a soul level, I chose that environment specifically so I could learn the lessons I needed to learn, so that I could be the teacher that I came here to be. And had I not experienced all the drama and trauma and learned how to transmute it and transcend it, I wouldn't be able to teach what I'm here to teach, which is to help others through their own story. And now I'm like, oh, that was a really interesting backstory.
Yeah, and it's so powerful because people trust you more when you have been down the roads like that, because they've been down their own road. We've all had our roads less traveled that are all distinct to us. And, no one's better, worse. Some are more, traumatizing, or more things happen to them, but yet they're all, look, you've come back. We're born again. I mean, that's so true. We are born again. And that is beautiful that happened to you. And so I know I had a friend of mine go through the same thing in 2008. She had a business and she lost the whole thing. Her and her husband were in it together and they lost it all. And she literally was born again, just as you have been born again, because she went on a trip to France and realized that she didn't even want it anymore. It was like, I don't need that. I don't need that big business and that $1 million club I got into. I don't need that anymore. And she started all over. And it was like we worked together for, a good year or more and did work, healing work. And she just totally zoomed through it. And so you are saying the same. You did it with self-help books, then parenting books. I mean, that you were so good that you could guide yourself through that. Because
the parenting books actually weren't a part of that. Was a part of raising my children. What happened in 2000? What happened in 2008?
Yeah.
Actually, in 2008, that's when the businesses started failing.
The banks, yeah.
Right, the banks all crashed, and it hit really hard. I ended up filing for bankruptcy, and my house went into foreclosure, and
same thing for that.
Yep. We were $17 away from living in my car.
Oh my gosh!
So my car was paid off. Fortunately, my husband's car got repoed.
Oh no!
So we had my car, and we always said, you know what? At least we have that.
No, yes, you have to look at what we have.
Falls apart, at least we have a place to sleep.
Yeah. What else could you do? But you have family. I mean, you didn't, but did your husband have family? You could go.
I didn't, but my husband, my husband's family is a couple of hours away, so we could have gone out. If it came to it, we could have gone out there and stayed with his parents. Mm-hmm. They were lovely, lovely people. And it came down to my husband came home one day and he said, we have $17 and food in the fridge.
Wow.
And one car was
a tough one. Wow. That's an understatement. I mean, really.
And I had a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old at the time.
Yeah, that's almost like you're in a state of shock, but then all you can do is pick yourself up and keep moving forward, because your body will react later. It's like at the moment you have to just keep moving forward. But
so I started getting up and I didn't know it at the time. I had no idea I was telepathic. I just had ideas all the time come into my head and didn't know where they came from. And so I had this idea that what I needed to do was get up and start walking every morning. And so I started getting up at 6 o'clock every morning and going for a walk. It's the only time I had to myself. Because my son woke up at 6:30. So if I was out of the house by 6, I'd get a half hour through the neighborhood. And that changed my entire life. And I didn't know they were messages. I was just writing down what, as we know now, my higher self is always communicating with me. I started writing things down. I had notebooks everywhere. And I would have these amazing ideas that I would write down. And as I wrote down these ideas, it was healing my life. It was teaching me how to look at my past, to look at my life differently. And it felt like remembering what I already knew. And so I wrote, I had a notebook in my purse and in the diaper bag and in the bathroom and on the nightstand, and my notebooks everywhere. And so one day I started gathering all of my notebooks and I started typing it into the computer, and it turned into my first book. It was never my intent to write a book. It was my own healing process, and that became Transcending Fear. That was published in 2012. I'm publishing the second edition of Transcending Fear. Was supposed to come out last month, but my publisher hasn't given me an actual launch date. The second edition of Transcending Fear, that includes how I applied those first 6 principles in my life, and the 7th principle, and what happened to me since 2020, and letting go of my husband and learning how to detach from my children and learning how to detach from my home. This has been a very, very, very that seventh principle. None of this is easy,
No.
and it's necessary. And so what I was shown 10 years ago when I was writing that book, well, more than 10 now, it's about 13 because I started writing it in 2010, is that that in about 10 years, people would be able to do this work and it would happen so much faster. And I'm seeing that. What took me 5 years back in the 1980s, people are doing now very rapidly.
Because they're ready. They're ready.
Yeah.
Ready
So it doesn't,
you broke process, the ground. You were the groundbreaker. You made the path. And I have to read that because I just saw that, and you know, my business is Transcendent Healing. And that name was given to me. And I was trying to think of a name, and then one day I was driving in my car and I heard the word transcendent. And I went, that's it. That's my name, Transcendent Healing. And so I have used that ever since. And I almost changed it recently, but I still haven't changed it. And I don't know if it's really meant to be or not. So,
you know, it's a word that it's making a comeback. So
love the word.
I wrote my book, Transcending Fear, back in 2010. It was a word that a few people were using. And again, it's a word that came to me. I saw fear and then what's the word that goes with fear? Because this is all about facing fear and understanding that this reality we've been living in is a fear-based reality. And so the default in every decision is fear-based. The beliefs in every belief system is fear-based. And so if we're going to create this new world, this, as I call my newest book, Recreating Earth, if we're going to recreate Earth, we have to first understand that we have to be willing to look at everything we've ever believed about everything and understand every belief we have is based in fear. Once we recognize that, the role that fear plays, then we can transcend it and we can transmute it and flip the script so that it becomes about love. So that then every choice we make is consciously based in love rather than a continual default of fear.
Yes. So can you give us a few things that you'd like to tell us of how can you transcend fear? What would you tell people right now? That you, not to mess up your book.
Well, the primary thing is to understand that we have been living in a fear-based reality.
Okay, that is a major statement. Yes, yes.
Everything is fear.
Mm-hmm. I get that. I do.
Our religions are all fear-based. Mm-hmm. Our political systems are all fear-based. Yes. Everything we see on television is fear-based. Our education system is fear-based. Everything in our reality is based on fear.
It's almost hard to believe that, but I do understand it now, and I do believe it because I know I've had to work through my own fears to get to this place of this year. Last year, I took the whole year off just to get through my fears. I couldn't handle it. I was getting overwhelmed with fear. I'm like, why? You know, this isn't all true. You know, you denied that this is really, you know, all the different ways I was looking at it saying, no, it isn't going to happen. This isn't true. That isn't true, blah, blah, blah. But yet I was still feeling the emotional upset in the body. And so I had to just like, take care of Janet, take care of Yarra.
But it's the thing with fear is that fear is the great deceiver. It is so sneaky and so deceptive that it's really, really difficult for people to even recognize. So a lot of what's occurring in our world is what I call fear disguised as love. It's written in a way that it looks like love, but it's really fear. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's so difficult for people to recognize. Wow. When people talk about deception, fear is part of that deception. So, but one of the things that's really interesting about fear, it took me a while to grasp this.
I would say,
that, you know, I used to believe that hate was the opposite of love.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I first started discovering spirituality and starting to unwind spirituality from religion, and because religion and spirituality are so muddied and mingled together that a lot of people don't recognize they're two very different things. So once you start to unwind them and separate them, you can see, fear-based religious dogma versus love-based spirituality. And you can choose to let the fear-based religious dogma go, understanding that that's all meant for the control and division of humanity. Mm. And so when you're then connecting with the beautiful spirit of love, then you can start to recognize where fear has played a role in every area of your life. And so when I first started understanding this, I started hearing that fear is the opposite of love. And that took me a while to grasp. Starting to understand that hate is one of the many emanations of fear. People hate what they fear. So when you understand that hate is one of fear-based vibrations. So fear, everything that's based in fear is very constrictive. And if you recognize everything based in love is expansive and everything based in fear is restrictive, then you can start to recognize where fear plays a role in your life. Fear will say, you're not enough. Fear will say things, if you don't do this, then this is what the result will be. If fear tends to have if attached to it.
Yep.
So fear places conditions around it. This is why I talk about fear disguised as love within religion, because there is that, if you don't do it the right way, then, and and I used to laugh.
You won't go to heaven.
We talk about God's unconditional love, but that the idea of God has a big long list of conditions attached to it. So that's not unconditional love.
And that you're judged. And yes, and God will punish you. I mean, God is not a punishing God, the one I know.
God is love. It is the pure, absolute energy of love itself. It is the stuff all things are made of. There is no anger, resentment, blame, judgment. Those are all conditions that human beings put on God.
There you go.
And so then when you start to understand that fear is the opposite of love, so I understood that for a while, but then I came to understand that love is all it is. Love is all that is. It is all things. It is the stuff all things are made of. It is the energy of God itself. It's all things masculine, all things feminine. It is the glue that turns energy into matter. It is the glue that binds human beings together. It is all that is. It is all that. And even in the Bible, when God says, I am that I am, that's it. I am that, all that. Therefore, we are also all of that. So then I was trying to grasp, if God is all that is, then where does fear play a role in that? Then fear actually isn't the opposite of love. Fear is just the lowest vibration of love. If love is all it is, it's vibrations of it.
That's so true. That's beautiful. Wow. That's such a great understanding. The frequency of love just starts dropping.
Yeah. So at the very bottom, it's tight and restrictive.
Yeah.
And that when people get into that deep, dark well of fear, it's really difficult to pull themselves out of. Once you start to pull yourself up out of it and you start moving up the I call the spiritual spiral, it's like tight at the bottom, it gets wider and wider and wider as we go up the spiritual spiral into this beautiful expansiveness of spirit, where there is only love. You get to the point where it's impossible to hate. You get to the point where it's impossible to hold judgment and resentment toward another being, because you understand on a soul level, we all chose that.
Yep.
Our own soul's learning. We all chose to learn through the contrast of light and dark, love and fear.
Yes.
Planet Earth is an excellent medium for soul growth.
Yes, it is.
It sucks a lot of
it's the hardest one you'll ever want to go to, as far as this. Yes, it's cool.
It's like, woo, I'm going to go down there and play that human game, and no, that's one of the toughest games ever written.
You had no idea what you just took on. Yeah.
And we keep coming back for more. That's
yeah. Well, what I always hear is that they love the physicality of us, that all our tastes and smells and all the parts of us, the emotional, the physical, the mental, all of that is so exhilarating, because when you're in the big expanse of the highest realms, you really are you're just kind of like neutral. You're love, but nothing changes. Nothing's happening out there.
The constant and continual state of paradise
Which
And I
is
think
sounds lovely. It's a little boring, I guess,
I
because
think
we
it gets
keep
boring
coming
after a
back.
while. Yeah.
So when you're looking at our Earth and we say, wow, things are tough here. Yeah, but I mean, we'd like it to be a little less tough, let's for sure on that. But we do enjoy the incredible adventure and experience and all the emotion. I mean, would we really not want to go through it when you look back on it? It's like, well, it wasn't easy. We wish we didn't have to go through some of these things, but wow, it's just so you learn so much and you become such a different person from all of it.
Yeah.
It's just so beautiful. And when you say love is all that is, that's always been my favorite saying. You say so many things that I totally have said and love. And I'm like, she's just put it all together in such a beautiful way that you have that expression for the clarity to bring it all through. And it's just beautiful. So, wow, I love that. So where are we going to go on this? So I know we were talking, so the fear, that was such a clear frequency understanding of fear and love. I love that because I think that's going to help people see things, because when they're like, I still see people walking around in masks, and it's like, okay, guys. And I know sometimes they are sick, so that could be part of the reason, but it's really not the healthiest thing for you, although they feel it is. So I guess it's a safety net. But what are you going to do? I guess you just have to allow them. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. I mean, I just have to step back now, and I try not to. I'm not judging anymore. I look at them and go, okay, that's your choice. Nothing anyone can do about it, and just I hope you're okay. That's all I think to myself now. But there's just so much that's changed us. This, like, that fear that you say permeates in small ways. When I see people with masks, I mean, I just see that they're living in so much fear. That's what I feel when I see it. And that is what they're doing. And really, because they're so afraid something's going to happen. So it's just
Fear isn't necessarily a bad thing either.
No, it protects us.
So the reason fear exists is one, it's an excellent medium for growth. When you think about putting a seed in the ground and the seed has to sit in that darkness for a while for it to germinate.
Yep.
That darkness that exists as a medium for growth. Now we are outgrowing it. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but that fear exists for self-preservation.
Okay.
So when you understand that it is love, it is our love of ourselves, even if it's the teeny tiniest bit, that keeps us in that self-preservation. Mm-hmm. If we had no love at all, there would be no desire to preserve our life.
Right.
So
true.
I had a really difficult for a while. It's interesting when I talk to women about fear, they understand fear-based belief. When you talk to men about fear, they go, oh, fear is good. It's what keeps us alive. So to that degree, yes, fear is good. If we didn't have fear as human beings, the lions would have eaten us, right?
Yeah, there is a healthy fear.
There is a healthy fear. The issue is that there are beings who have learned how to use fear as a medium for control.
Exactly.
And that's when it became toxic to the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so the human experience, if you think about the great human experience as a video game, and we as souls chose to come play this game on this place called Earth and experience this great human experience. It's like fear became a virus that took over the game.
It sure
and so now we are restoring the original plan, the original divine human, the original divine Earth, and restoring Earth to the paradise, the planet of peace and paradise she was intended to be, the divine human, which is this beautiful light being that can live for hundreds and hundreds of years, as long as we choose. The human blueprint is one of the most magnificent designs ever created in the universe. That's why so many people went to experience it. As you were saying, the waves of emotion and experience that comes with being human. Wow, and the roller coaster ride that's the human experience. That's why souls want to keep experiencing it. And it's just now we're coming out of the depths of the darkness and emerging into the light. And Earth is a learning planet. You know, one of the things I was shown about 10 years ago, more than that again, about 15 years ago, is this started really coming in 2008, that Earth is a learning planet until which time the collective of souls determined for it to be a planet of peace. What I was shown about a year ago is that the collective of souls have now agreed for this to be a planet of peace. So on a soul level, we are now moving out of learning through the contrast. It's still going to be a learning planet, but the difference is we're no longer going to be learning through the contrast. We're going to be learning through joy and learning through generosity and learning through love.
Oh, I love that.
It's still learning. It's just learning in a different way.
Did that happen when, so this whole shift in the collective mindset, say consciousness, happened, and that's when they knew that we were going to make it through no matter what was happening, we were going to make it? Is that kind of is like that sort of guarantee in the background that, you know, you've sort of bought a policy for this world, and you're kind of almost assured, but we still have to go through the hard stuff to get there. It's not like it's going to just be handed to us. We made the decision, but to get there, we still have to go through the growing pains and the unlearning of things that we thought were important in our lives now.
Right.
Yeah.
So on a soul level, that has now been the collective of soul agreement. My understanding was 2/3 of the souls of humanity have now chosen for this to be a planet of peace and paradise. What happens on a spiritual level can take 2 to 3 years for it to physically manifest.
Okay.
Because we as human beings still have to make the conscious choices to create that. And right now, most of humanity is still unconsciously making their choices based in fear. So now we need to flip that so that human beings can start making conscious choices. The other thing I was shown a couple of years ago, I get my best insights in the shower. When it's the shower,
That's
a
good.
Message came in that there
was water. It's the crystal water.
Yes. So when a lot of times I go, I live just a few blocks from the ocean. So when I need clarity, I'll take off my shoes and go up way too cold right now. But I'll walk in my bare feet in the water and just connect with the water. And so one of the messages that came in, I am sure I have it in a notebook somewhere, was that there was a meeting of all of the beings, literally like across the galaxy, across the universe, or multiverse, however big this meeting was. It was like a scene from Star Wars where there were representatives from every planet at this meeting. And there was an agreement that the new prime directive, so the prime directive has been free will choice for
free will choice, yes,
for forever, right? The prime directive has now been changed from free will choice to conscious choice.
Oh.
And the reason that change occurred is because the dark side of the contrast had found ways of manipulating free will choice.
Oh, sure have. They sure.
And that now the prime directive is conscious choice. So human beings will be given conscious choice. Until now, we've had coerced choice, we've had manipulated choice.
We have, because they'll tell
choice.
you things in ways in movies, or they'll tell you things in, movies a lot. They tell you a lot of that. But you don't even understand what it means, because there's no real connection to the reality that you're living. It doesn't even, like I hear of all these disclosure, they say, that's out in all these movies that came out like, 20 years ago? Well, I mean, none of us were going to be looking for that then. I mean, you're not even aware that there's something to look for. We thought our world was good and wonderful and loving to us. And now we find out, well, that is definitely not the case.
Well, so, the earth has always been good.
Not Mother Gaia, not herself. Right? Earth is awesome. Earth is amazing.
But the narrative.
The beings that chose to think they're in control.
Correct.
have shifted the way that the world, that we are being treated, which was supposed to be, you know, equally with we were in charge and we were telling the people above us what they wanted to do for us, but that doesn't seem to be the way it works. The Constitution of our world said, yeah, this is what happens, but then they flipped all that. They flipped it all.
Well, but and this isn't something in the last 20 years. This is
this has been going for what, over 100, 200. Yes. But okay. Something recently came up. I was just listening to someone say that the last 200 was when the dark came. Well, there was a dome over. This is what I just heard. I don't know if you understand or believe any of this. I don't even know if I do, but this is what I heard. This is just information to discern for yourself, anyone listening. But they put a dome over us to protect us because we were a learning planet, and that people were aware. Too many people became aware of us. Too many other galactic societies became aware of us, and they learned how to manipulate the, prime directive. And they knew, so then the good galactics put a dome over us, but then we got invaded by the negative galactics, and then they started manipulating our free will the last 200 years more severely. Have you heard anything like that?
No.
How does that feel to you?
Well, okay, so we, my understanding is, as a collective of souls, the souls agreed to learn through the contrast. There was a time when this planet was a planet of peace and paradise.
Right.
But the story of the Garden of Eden is, and it was a fifth dimensional planet, a love-based planet.
Sure.
Yeah. There were these beautiful, the elementals that lived here in peace and harmony. The divine humans lived here in peace and harmony. And then the dark side of the contrast was allowed to arrive, and human beings agreed to learn through the contrast. Now, remember, this is on a soul level. Sure. And this is difficult for people to grasp, because here on the earth field, it looks different than it does from a soul perspective. Mm-hmm. And so that is when fear arrived at the planet. That's what the story of Garden of Eden is all about. That's yes. When fear came, and we left this beautiful garden of peace and plenitude and paradise, and went out into the fields where we learned fear and strife and self-preservation and all of the elements of fear, mm-hmm. lack, all of that. And so it's like leaving if you're a child and you leave the beautiful sanctuary of your mother's home to go out and play on the playground. And when you go out on the playground, things can get pretty rough.
Definitely. The real world.
And it doesn't mean so what we did collectively is we left our mother's safety to go out into the playground.
Sure.
She never left us.
No, I never felt that. Yeah.
We left her. And I'm talking about Mother Creator, Mother God.
Mother God.
And so we left our mother and went out to play on the playground where things get pretty rough, but it doesn't mean that Mother God hasn't always been there looking out for us and protecting us.
Yes.
She has been returning since the early 1960s, and really strong now this year. She's like finished. This is the resurrection is now very assured of Mother Creator. And she has, it's interesting. That's actually what the rapture is. It's not a religious thing. It's actually Mother God wrapping her arms around us.
Ah.
And
but that's supposed to happen this year?
I don't get dates. I'm never given dates.
No, I don't mean dates. We don't want a date because
I'm never given dates because no one knows, as they say, no one knows the time of God.
Exactly.
No one knows divine timing. And a lot of that has to do with us raising our own awareness on our own vibration and coming home to the loving resonance within ourselves. It's not like, well, when we think about this, when a child is hurt at school, mom's the one that goes and picks them up.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Dr. Mom, when a child falls down and they have a scraped knee, mom picks
Mom
them up
tends
and
to it. Yep.
loves them up. And think about how good that feels when mommy's got me.
Yep. So safe. Mm-hmm.
That is Mother Creator. And she got written out of all the stories. That's why it's called his story. So Mother Creator was written out of all the stories. Even in Christianity, they call her the Holy Spirit. She doesn't even have a likeness.
You know, I just heard that. I never thought of the Holy Spirit as being the feminine divine energy.
It's God the Father, God the Mother, and God the Child. But it's like mom's, it's like mom gets Mother's Day once a year. Mom's forgotten about. She's just taken for granted that she's there. She doesn't actually have dad comes home. Dad's got the money. Dad's got the plan. Dad's got the stuff. And mom's just this silent, ever-present presence. But if you've ever felt the Holy Spirit, it is a rapture. It is a bliss that is beyond words. You cannot even explain the love and the compassion that comes from Mother Creator. And that's what's being resurrected and restored to the planet.
Wow.
Along with all the other stuff that's happening, but Mother is coming out.
And that's bringing in the whole balance of the divine feminine energy.
Correct.
Wow.
Putting and creating this beautiful balance of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And that allows for all of humanity to understand that all of us are the divine child.
Yes. Wow. We're the Holy Family.
We are. Every single one of us is the Holy Trinity. How amazing and extraordinary is that to come to that?
That is incredible. I love that you just put that together like that. I mean, that's a beautiful awareness. I mean, it's so peace. It gives me so much, I don't know, comfort and just joy to say that we're the Holy Family, all of us on earth, like the divine Father and Mother are all here for us. And now you're saying, so the Mother is the rapture, the Holy Spirit. And what is Mother Earth? What do we call Mother Earth?
Well, I call her Sister Sophia, but that's just because
call her Sister Sophia. Well, I was going to say, because she can't be the mother if she's the sister. Okay, she can't be the mother.
Mother Earth.
Yes.
Our planet happens to be a feminine planet.
Yes, I know she is, for sure. Yes.
So she is one of the embodiments of Mother Creator, just as you and I are.
Okay, that makes sense. Yep.
And she is an angelic who chose to be the soul that is this planet we call Mother Earth. Now, what's really interesting is someone told me a couple of days ago that the soul that had incarnated as Earth left, and another soul has come in because she was so beautiful and kind and gentle. She was allowing these beings to basically beat her up.
Okay.
And another soul came in, to my understanding is Sophia. She's one of the Elohim, and she's more of a tough love mom.
We need that right now.
Yeah.
I think,
and she's basically saying, "I'm done with this."
I already like her.
I am done with supporting you beings who do not love and support my children. So I'm done. So and that's what we need, right? We need mom to come out of the house and come out of the playground and say, "Okay, kid, time's up."
Exactly. We definitely need that. Yes.
So that's where we are now. And it's more of the love of the mature mother. It says, "I love all of you, and you need a timeout. You go to your room, you go to your room."
Yep.
Everybody needs a timeout.
Yes, we definitely need that right now. We need the structure and the discipline. Yes, we totally need that. And see, that's so beautiful to know that Mother Earth even can have a walk-in or whatever we want to call it. Because I mean, who would have thought that she can also do that too? You know?
Well, she went through it. She went through an upgrade. So my feeling is, it is like a walk-in experience. They merged down of a higher aspect of self that now says, okay, this sweet, kind mom is wonderful, but sometimes if we're going to fix the issues in our house, there needs to be some tough love. It doesn't mean that she loves us any less. It's just when the kids are fighting, they need a timeout.
Yep. And didn't that happen to you, talking about a walk-in? I remember hearing, did you have a walk-in experience yourself?
Yes. So it's very similar in that my higher self merged down. So it's less of a walk-in. There are a lot of different types of walk-ins.
So you had more of an integration.
Yeah. So I had an integration with my higher self. And what's been really interesting to clarify for people, because there was someone who said on a show, well, that's not fair. You walked in and you don't have any problems. I'm like, that's not the case.
No, that is not the case. No.
I still have the same backstory, still have all the same human issues. The only difference is that I can now see them from a more empowered perspective. So yes, my eighth dimensional self has merged down into this physical vessel. And what that does for me is that it allows me to make choices that my personality self didn't have the courage to make. And it's kind of the same kind of thing with Mother Earth. I had a codependent relationship because of the way that I grew up, and I got strong for a while in the 80s, and then I got married and I became a mom, and I had a codependent relationship with my husband and with my children.
Yeah, understand that very well. I had it myself.
And so I had to learn how to
stand in your own,
how to stand in my power. And that merging with my higher self brought that in, and that's what allows me now to stand out there, and gave me the strength to separate. I dearly love my husband. He's still one of my best friends. I just couldn't be married to him anymore, and I had to learn how to detach from my children. And
right. I mean, and you're doing that with love. I mean, you're there, but you're not the way you were before, because
they were both teenagers. I got a vision of them both with pacifiers in their mouth. And I went,
oh no.
I think I'm over mothering them.
Yeah, that's called mothering. I remember.
I was smothering them with love.
How did
they weren't growing up because I was over mothering them.
Sure. I was doing.
And that's kind of what has happened on our planet.
Yes. We were smothered.
We were being smothered with this beautiful, kind, loving, but humanity wasn't growing up because we were being.
It was too easy.
Yeah.
It was too easy. We didn't get the hard knocks enough. Now we're getting them all.
And
the hard knocks
to wake up and grow up.
Yeah, this is the spiritual. This is the spiritual test, the spiritual mastery moment. And yes, it's huge. And I that's been my word for this year, is soul maturity.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring up the word mastery, because that I've been starting to use that very much. About a month ago, that word started coming back into the realm, and I'm hearing it now everywhere. It's like, this is the year that those of us who incarnated to lead the way for the rest of humanity, that this is the year that we move into mastery. And we've been practicing on each other for the last 15, 20 years. And that this is the year we step out of practice and move into mastery. And accepting that role of mastery.
Yes.
And I think it's really important for people to understand that this doesn't mean master and servant. The whole term master has also been manipulated. This is about accepting that we have done the work, basically earning a master's degree on planet Earth, right? That we've done the work now to be able to own the truth that we have been in this process of mastery. Even Jesus didn't call himself a master.
But everyone else did.
Everyone else did, because they saw him as their master teacher. But there's a difference between being a master teacher and being in the humbleness of what it takes to become a master.
Yes.
And then you have other people out there who call themselves masters in the arrogance of being called a master. So it's really important to understand the difference, that there is the way that Yeshua served was what's called servant master, servant-based leadership, service-based leadership, service-based mastery. And then you have the master classes that people take from so-and-so master teacher, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And they may have mastered their craft, but they're far from what I would consider to be a master teacher.
Yeah,
they're doing it from a place of arrogance and ego.
It's a fine line when you use that word. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it really is.
And so when I think about mastery, I think about the like Buddha and Yeshua, the master teachers. Book become the master teacher, and the real master teacher has, not the real, I'm going to clarify that, the service-based master teacher has gotten to a point where they have faced their ego. And I guess relinquished might be a good word for it.
They've relinquished the parts of the ego, I think, that really get in the way. So I guess you have to have a little bit of your ego just to survive here, but that's only, I mean, this is my understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, but, because the ego exists. The ego exists for self-protection.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It is a part of us that exists for self-protection. An unhealthy ego has all kinds of issues that go with it. But an ego that feels safe. And so for me, when I think of ego, I think of it as like a 2-year-old boy. It's it's part of our masculine protection aspect. And that when it feels safe and wrapped in the arms of love, it no longer needs to project itself into every aspect of our lives. It's healed and it's safe, and it knows it's okay. So it no longer lashes out in the various ways the ego manifests itself. And that's the humbling of the ego.
Yes. Yes, I agree with that.
That's where you get to the place of mastery. I'm thinking too about Master Yoda, right? And all the different masters that we've called in our storylines throughout our stories. And that getting to that place of mastery is getting to the place where you've experienced so much in your life that you can then reach out and guide others through that same process without the ego being the driving force.
Yes. And people will react knowing that they feel safe with you. I mean, their response, I should say, the response to you would be, or to anyone with that humbled ego that's been sort of downsized and it's right sized now. It's the right sized ego, I guess we could say. Now we feel that trust and kind of a safety with those people. You trust them very easily and you feel safe with them. It's sort of like you can tell, your whole body lights up. Don't you feel that? I do. I feel that with people when I feel, oh, wow. Like if I'm especially a masculine energy, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's the kind of masculine energy I like. That one, no, thank you. Do you ever notice that? That's how I kind of.
Most definitely. And I, I love meeting a gentle man.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
It doesn't make them any less masculine. And so there is this, the conversation about the toxic masculine and the, where have all the gentlemen gone? That kind of thing. And that in that need that some of the masculine has of self-preservation, men have to cling to what it means to be men. They don't even realize that they've gone into massive over ego and over need to control the feminine. And as the feminine rises, the men who have really come to terms and found that gentleman within themselves are actually assisting in helping the feminine rise to this beautiful marriage that is intended to be with the masculine and the feminine. And it's only those men who insist on preserving, in a sense, fundamentalism, that man exists to control women, and that God created women to be subservient to men, those men are the ones who are still attempting to stay at that above, that men are above women, and feel that they need to control the feminine.
The old paradigm, the old patriarchal paradigm, yes.
Yeah. And there are men who are terrified that if the patriarchal pyramid crumbles, where do they fit? In that,
they're going to fit perfectly if they relax.
Yes, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. When the masculine and the feminine finally realize that we're meant to live in this beautiful, harmonious balance and equality, and the dance of the universe. It's and that neither was meant to be above another. It's kind of like partners. I look at the notes, where the notes go up and down and up and down and up and down. They're both necessary for the harmony to play. But when you have the masculine here and the feminine here, you don't ever get that beautiful harmony.
And that's what I love seeing. You can see some of that easily developing now with the younger people, the younger couples, the younger families. I see so much more of a balance between them because I mean, women are now working full time. It's not just because they are, but it's just accepted, and it's kind of become, men quickly pop in and will do all the things that they'll cook, they'll shop, they'll do all the things that the women used to do, like when the women's lib movement came out and we thought we were liberated. Right? No way.
Well, in a sense, though, it did allow us to expand our horizons.
It did some of that
before we actually.
Good part.
Well, so here's what a lot of people don't understand. What a part of what the women's liberation movement did is it changed the definition of marriage. I don't think a lot of people realize that up until 1983, women were owned by their husbands. It was actually written into the marriage agreement here in the United States.
Oh, I never knew that
women were the property of men.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and that, if you remember, in the wedding vows, where we had to obey our husband.
They took that word out when I got married.
Oh, yeah. I didn't use that word. Nowhere in my marriage agreement.
No, not in mine either.
Yeah, I was not created to obey the masculine, but
no, we wrote our own vows. Yeah, we wrote our own. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that women's liberation movement was really, really important for women to come out from underneath their slave masters, their taskmasters.
Well, I guess when you put it that way, yeah, I like that. I didn't realize that part, but I always felt like it was good. There were good things because women didn't have to stay home all the time and were expected just to be stuck there. I mean, that was an important thing, but yet, and they had a career. They could develop themselves more and get more social, and their life shifted in a big way, but then so much was also still expected of them. So, it was like they still had to do all the other parts, plus be the mom and do this and do that. They were the superwoman. The superwoman thing came out. But I love
because men did take on the masculine roles. So women would go, this is a discussion I had a few weeks ago on another show. Okay. Women get up, get the kids ready for school, make breakfast, get the kids off to school, go to work, pick up the kids from school,
that was the part that was
cook dinner, clean the house, And so women have 2 full-time jobs and men have 1 full-time job.
I know. That was the bad part. That was the part that had to be shifted, which I think is happening now.
And that is happening. And I love it when I'm out walking in the morning and I see a dad out in the stroller. I'm like, good dad. That means he's giving his wife time to actually take a shower.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can say.
And the dads I see volunteering at school.
So important.
So important. There's all this research that shows how important it is for parents to volunteer in the school.
Yes.
And how important it is for dads to volunteer in the school, because it creates a relationship with all the children at school with a father figure.
Yes.
And some of those kids at school, the only father figure they see is the dad that volunteers at school.
That's a good point. That's a good point. My husband always volunteered. I always loved that. He'd go on the school trips and he'd say, I want to go. And I'm like, well, then you should go, because I would go. And then he goes, well, I want to go on that one. I'm like, there you go. You go ahead. So he would do it. And my kids loved it. They loved it. I was so happy that he wanted to do that. It was just so nice. So it's so nice to see these shifts in our world. So
Yeah.
I know we've been talking a while, so
Yeah,
I
and we could
didn't
probably
even
talk for
realize
days.
how far along we've gone here. But it's amazing the things that we've talked about. It's just been so powerful. And I want to know if there was any final words you have, like there's some visions that you want to share with us, because we talked a little about a couple of visions you had before our conversation. I love what you said.
Yeah, I'll share really quick. This is my newest book.
Yes, Recreating
Just,
Earth.
just
Spectacular.
published it.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's a vision of the future of Earth.
Very much, yes.
The reason I wrote that is because people kept asking me, well, what does New Earth look like? How what can we do? What can one person possibly do? And I had so many people ask me. What I didn't realize is that a lot of people don't have the ability to envision, because it comes so easily for me. And the reason television was created was so that the people who run the entertainment industry, well, keep going up, know that these televisions tell humanity what to envision. The human mind is so powerful. It is one of the most powerful creations in the universe. The human mind is so powerful that it can create anything it envisions. So television tells us what to envision. And we actually then, when we talk about not having conscious choice, we unconsciously create that vision that's being portrayed for us on the television.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, and so that is going to be shifting, because there is, as we talked about off camera, there's a new conscious media that's being created, and I'm going to be a part of creating.
That is so nice.
Yeah, that the new vision that's going to start being projected through the film industry, through television, is to help humanity envision something even better. And using the power of visioning to create a new world. And so this book is based on the vision I was given of the future that's already been created. So understand that this new Earth, as it's being termed, actually, no one's leaving and going to a new planet. I get that.
No, I've gotten that. Yes.
Yeah. New Earth isn't someplace else.
Right.
What it really is renewed Earth and restored Earth. We're taking this Earth and recreating it the way she was always meant to be, only with better, but like with these magnificent technologies that are coming forward. If you think about the technologies that existed during the time of Lemuria, it's all of that restoring Earth. And so I got the guidance to write this book so that people know what to envision.
Yes, I saw some of the classroom setups you had, and they were in the shape of the Metatronic cube. That was brilliant. I just couldn't believe that. I said, oh, who would have ever thought of that? It was incredible. So there's so much to see in that book. It's really quite a visionary book. It really is. And it's a great blueprint. You've given us a blueprint to use. So thank you for that, Victoria, because
You're so welcome.
It's so important for the right people to start saying, okay, who wants to take this blueprint and start using it? I mean, any one of us can start it now. But who's got that passion that's just burning through to you? Are you the one to start it? And we're just going to be your assistants, whatever you want us to do. We'll help you through it. So yes.
Well, what's amazing is that this is happening all over the world right now. They're starting to spout up all over the place. But the difference is, one of the reasons the dark side of the contrast has been so successful is because it's so organized.
Oh, of course.
And I've been saying for years, we need to become just as organized as the dark side has always been. So all of these little startups are happening all over the planet, and have been for about the last, the ascension started in the 1960s. So it really started in the 1960s. And the internet has made it possible for us to now become organized. And that old reality was based in competition. The reason competition was fed to us is to keep us from uniting.
Sure.
The dark side of the contrast knows that what works best is cooperation. They all invest in each other's companies.
Yes, they do, don't they?
All cooperate with each other.
And they all
So
meet all the time. They have more meetings than any group I've ever seen, and they're so highly televised, and everybody wants to go and get,
yeah,
You're
they
absolutely
know
right.
they know
Yes.
the power of cooperation.
Yes.
They just fed us the false belief that human nature is competition. Because if we understand the power of cooperation, we completely change the entire paradigm of Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're going to start seeing is that we are going to start cooperating.
Yes, cooperating, collaborating, all those words are so important right now.
Well, collaborations actually bridge between competition and cooperation.
Well, that's a good start.
Yeah. So we started with the collaboration movement, started around 2012.
Okay.
Where we started moving out of competition and toward cooperation. Collaboration's is an interim between the two. If you think of 3D as competition, 4D is collaboration, 5D is cooperation.
Oh, I like that.
About it that way. So you started seeing co-ops popping up all over the place. WeWork, the Phoenix Salon, places like that. Those are actually collabs. And collab means working side by side. So for me, a visual I get with that is, imagine you and I working together in a lab.
Mm-hmm.
We're both in the same lab. I'm working on my project, you're working on your projects, and we might cross promote each other. That's collaboration. The next phase, the fifth dimensional love-based reality, is cooperation. And that takes a different mindset and heart set, because it requires the ability to work together for the same purpose. So we might be, you have your show and I have my show, and we'll cross promote each other, but we work together for the same purpose. So we might actually be working together for a mutual purpose. That's the difference between working together in a side-by-side environment or working together on the same project. We can still have our separate businesses, but we work together on the same project. That becomes a cooperation. That's the next phase for humanity, is competition completely ceases to exist. All then that exists is collaboration and cooperation.
Wow. What's going to happen to all those sports?
What?
What's going to happen to all those sports?
Well, sports is a little bit different in that the competition is fine until it becomes conflict. So if you think about sports, if athletes play a sport for the fun of it, which is what it used to be, you play it for fun. The masculine aspect of us naturally kind of goes into that competition. But when you think about it, when you come down to the root of it, it isn't competing against each other. It's creating a learning from the experience and becoming our best self.
That is the true.
This is a little bit different than what we have called competition. So for example, when I was in Toastmasters, I would do these speech competitions all the time. And there are people that sat out because they don't believe in competition. The difference is when you look at it from the space of self-improvement. Right. It's this continual drive within us to improve upon ourselves. And that when we look at sports from that perspective, the other thing that sports does is that it when it's at its best, it's also teaching teamwork and camaraderie. Yes. And community. And again, that comes back to cooperation.
So that can really turn into a different way of looking. I love that. That's powerful, because that's the 5D way.
Right. And so when one team wins, the other team loses, that's when you go, high five, dude, that was a great game.
Right. We really enjoyed it. We loved it.
And really just as genuinely happy for the other team as you are for yourself.
Exactly. You can
because it brought out the best in everybody.
Yes. It's nice to have that admiration for someone's, what their new idea was in that particular competition, and how they they thought of something different, and to admire each other rather than to begrudge each other.
Right.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. Well, thank you. That's a beautiful vision that you shared that we can look towards, because it's what we want, and this is what we need, and this is it. So we have to just start taking those steps to do it and to move forward. So I know you have a special gift for our listeners. Would you like to talk about it, or do you? I know I have one. I have it right here. You have the gift of Rising Up. It is a, do you remember what it was about? Rise Up. It's a link.
Yes. So I had hoped that my new free gift would be ready by now, but there's a story.
That's okay. We don't have to talk about it right now. We can also.
No, it's actually fine. I have my book Rise Up. It is a free gift on my website.
Okay.
It is actually a softbound book on Amazon. I am giving it away for free on my website as a download. I have another free gift that I've written. It's beautiful, called Happiness Through Self-Love. But my website person disappeared.
Oh dear.
So it's not available yet.
That's okay. There's no rush. So but when we have everything come out, it may be, if it's available, then everyone, you'll look in the bottom of, after this interview, you'll see everything on the email. You have a link either to Rise Up, or what was the other one? The Happiness is Self-Love.
Self-love.
I love that, because self-love is one of my major things. That's why I said own your divine light. It was all about learning to love yourself and knowing who you are. That's one of my top. We have so many similarities in the things that we talk about. I love that. I love that. I felt like, wow, I know what she's talking about exactly. So thank you for that. And if there's anything else you decide to bring out, you will see it all on the end of this email. So after this show is over. So thank you again. And I want to just thank the listeners here. We thank you all for coming on and listening. And anytime you have a comment, we really appreciate it, or any feedback, anything that you receive that has helped you through something that you heard from Victoria today. We'd love you to give us a comment. So thank you for being here, and always let us know if there's something you'd like to share with us. And for you, Victoria, I want to thank you for bringing your amazing angelic presence, and I know that is a real thing, here to us today, and your clear and creative insights that are helping to formulate, inspire the creation of our new earth reality. It is just so powerful and so beautiful. And the divine human is rising, and we hold unlimited potential and gifts as we create our new earth realities. And thank you again, Victoria, for your courage to step into owning your divine light. And as we raise our hearts frequency, know that we are nourished with the love of the universe. And I am Yarra Atlantica Miller, soul name of Janet Miller, and I will see you all in the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.